Everybody, it's Annette from the Art of Intuition. And today we're going to talk about, are we siphoning energy or are we generating our own internal light? Are we siphoning it from others? This is a funny thing I heard the other day, siphoning energy. I hadn't heard it in a long time. They used to call it energy vampires, and that was a big wording, I would say maybe a decade ago. You know, people would say, oh, they're an energy vampire, and it was kind of funny because you would see, you know, people complain about someone being an energy vampire, yet they would still go and kind of be around them, you know, but oh no, they're a vampire, they're an energy vampire. Whereas in real life, if you were with a vampire, you would not let them bleed you dry. But with energetic vampires, for whatever reason, that was okay. I kind of just showed it's a weird example, but I think you get where I'm going with it. It shows the disparity really in things that we see in the physical harm and energetic harm, right? That we don't value our energy as much as we value our physical existence, right? Not understanding at that time how connected they are. That you can't have a physical existence without your soul light, which what people call it, your energetic light, your soul light. It's all the same thing. So how do we know, right? So I'm not going to use energy vampire because I think it's kind of a ridiculous term. So we're going to go with siphoning, right? So why are you siphoning it? Are you generating your own internal light? Are you siphoning it from other people? Now, we've always been on the siphoning side of it. So no one who's going to watch this video is ever going to say, oh, I've never done that. We have all done that, okay? We have all siphoned energy, life force from other people. We've all done it. At one point in time, we have all done it, okay? Because we didn't have enough internal light to sustain ourselves. You know, we did not have enough to keep ourselves to feel full. And that's really what this is about. We don't do it maliciously. This is not something people do maliciously. This isn't something that we would go out and do like, oh, we're gonna drain all these people. We would do it because we did not have any connection internally. So we're lacking internally. Like we don't have that connection inside. So we're trying to grasp, you know, we're trying to grasp anything outside. And that kind of gets us to, you know, what does it mean to siphon energy? How do I even know if I'm doing it? You know, if you are grabbing anything external and using that to fill a gap, whether it's a person, whether it is a situation you might find yourself in where you need that to feel anything at all. You know, you need that to feel energized. That might be a better word to use. To make you feel energized. Let me go be around this person because they make me feel peaceful. They make me feel energized. In a sense, you're using their light to sustain you. You know, because you do not have your own enough internal light. We all have internal light. But most of a majority, pretty much all of our soul light is outside. It's not actually in our body. That's what ascension is, to bring all that in the body. So that is, you know, we start our awakening and we start clearing all this stuff to make room for the ascension journey to where we can start getting the light in our body. It doesn't mean we're not clearing anymore in ascension. It just means we've started kind of, you know, if you ever see, a building, you know, a deconstruction of something. You might see the first blow and you can see a lot kind of blow out, but there's still a lot more to go. That's kind of what awakening is. You know, it's kind of the first time that big metal ball, the wrecking ball hits the building. Yeah, a lot of damage is done. Yeah, a lot of stuff gets cleared out, but there's a whole building left to go. And that's basically what our awakening is. But it feels really strong because we're in the middle of to us that's a huge blow. You know, we weren't expecting half our life to cave in, and we weren't expecting everything to go to pot. So if you haven't been through any part of awakening, you're still in a siphoning energy phase. You are siphoning energy off other people. If you are disrespecting people, in a way we're siphoning that energy. We're draining those people because we're disrespecting them. And I had a situation actually right before I came on to do this video where I set up our reality, you know, very clearly. There's certain guidelines in this reality, and the minute the reality started unfolding today, it's already getting violated, you know. So I had to align it back, and I can say when we align realities back, we are now, in a way, we're bringing our power back in. And that's another way you'll know if you're kind of siphoning someone else's energy. In a way, you're giving your power away, and you're also giving your energy out to them. So you can call it you're siphoning off somebody else's, or you're just giving yours away freely. You're still not filling your own cup up. You're not gaining your own. You're just either giving yours away or you're trying to, because we give so much of ours away, we now got to suck in from other people because we don't have enough. And you will be very clear when you're doing it, because you'll feel like when you're not around this person or around this group, you just don't feel, I use some words here I normally don't use. You don't feel good about yourself. You don't feel worthy. You feel like they give you a purpose. They give you, they give you a status. They give you a feeling. You see a lot, honestly, and I think a lot of the YouTube community, a lot of the relationship between the person doing the content and the person receiving the content, that actually after a while can kind of feel like it's almost like each side is using the other one. It becomes more of a parasitic on both sides, because everyone's using everybody else to feel something. I want people to watch this so I feel good about myself, and people want to be part of something so they want to watch it so they feel good about their self. It is a big mosh posh of how do you feel when you're with these people? And if you want to flip it, how do you know when you're being siphoned off of? How do you know when this is happening? Because when you're with these people, you feel drained. You feel like you're holding up the entire thing. I'm holding up the entire field. You feel like you're trying to hold up the entire building by yourself, because in a way you are. Now, there's going to be times in your journey, your ascension journey, even part of your awakening, where you're going to be called on to hold up realities, right? And you're going to be called on to see, can you keep it aligned? Can I keep this aligned? So you will have the siphoning of your energy take place, and you'll start to be able to feel it. And a lot of that starts to happen so you know what it feels like. All of a sudden you go out, and I was really excited to be out in this place, and I feel drained, I'm exhausted because I'm trying to sustain everyone else, right? So now I want to go home and sleep because I'm super tired now because I have to replenish, right? So it happens all the time. But eventually what you do is you start to flip it, where you're like, well, I'm not going to be around that anymore. I have given and given and given, and it's time for me to back away from those realities, because I don't have to do that anymore. I no longer have to hold that reality up. Now they have been shown enough, they've been exposed to enough, and a lot of it is being exposed to your presence. They've been exposed to that enough where now they can go on and start filling up their own light. And if they choose to do that, fine. If they don't, that's fine too, but they're not going to get it from you anymore. So, and like I said, we've all been on both sides. So we're not judging either side, no matter if you're being siphoned off of or you're siphoning energy. We've done them both, okay? I can remember lots of friend groups I was in, or different people I was around, where I was definitely siphoning their energy. That's what I was doing. And there is a subset of this, that when you're going through higher consciousness, the seeking phase, and you're kind of trying to listen to everything you can and read everything you can, that we will use the external to activate our consciousness, right? But there comes a time when that has to stop, because we have to be able to go internal after we've activated so much of it. We no longer can depend on these people or these external things. Anything external you're depending on to give you a feeling, you're technically siphoning energy from that experience, okay? You're using that experience to activate something. You're using that experience to either you're going to be using the experience, let's make another subset here. You're going to be using that experience to activate your own consciousness, which you might not know that at the time when you're doing it, but eventually you will realize that. Or you're not even interested in activating your own consciousness. You just want to, siphon off somebody else's. You want to be in somebody else's light and use that to fill all the holes internally, because you don't have enough within to do it yourself. And you see a lot of the collectives right now. I would probably do a video on what's the difference between a personal awakening and a collective awakening. We had a huge collective awakening start in 2020. Everybody, got into the collective awakening during the whole COVID time. There was a huge collective awakening for a lot of people. And you saw people who had been, a lot of these very intertwined cords of attachment, siphoning realities got cut off. People got cut off from them. They couldn't go to those people. They couldn't go to that workspace. They couldn't go out with those friends. They couldn't see these people anymore because their universes, our universes, were trying to get everyone back connected within. So different things happened here. Some people did that. Some people went online to try to get that connection, and you kind of started to see everything eventually kind of cycles back through, right? It's kind of like when we look at our realities and how we structure reality, and we say, well, we go through loop patterns. The collectives go through loop patterns too. They will go from, if we use a very rudimentary example, everything, in the late, I guess it would have been like 1896, 1897, once the Postal Services connected the whole United States, everyone was getting mail order, right? Because all of a sudden that was available. People could order things through a catalog, Sears catalog, and they could get it mailed to them. And then we went to, well, now everyone has cars. Everyone wants to go to stores, right? And all of a sudden, after so many decades of that, we've now gone back to now everything is online, everything gets mail ordered, because we don't want to go anywhere anymore. We just want everything to be mail ordered. So you start to kind of see how it all starts to flip, where we're going to repeat the same cycle. We're repeating it technically a little different, but it's kind of the same thing. We went from everything had to be external to, okay, now we got to go internal because everything shut down external. And now we have to go internal and see, okay, what is going on in here? Some people chose to do that journey then. Some people, it wasn't their time yet. They're going to now fill the hole with other things. So then I can now go online to try to fill those holes. And you saw that explode. Now you're seeing people kind of start to pull away from that again and go back into being around other people, finding other people with similar energetic signatures to either clear a reality, so they're just all together and pissed about something because they're trying to clear that anger, or they are, trying to just get back to, can I continue to? Can I now come back and continue to siphon off? A lot of people will find it harder to do because no matter how much time you spend by yourself, you are going to, whether you're trying or not, you're always going to be upticking. So if you look at a reality, the collective awakening that started in 2020, and now you're in that fifth year of that, or last year, I guess, into the fourth year, now you're in the fifth year of that, the vibration is higher than it was before. The Earth's vibration is higher, people's individual vibration, the collective's vibration is higher. That's why we're seeing all the collectives start to just split apart and argue with each other, because it technically is higher now. And so you go back and can I still do this? And a lot of people are picking up on it more. They understand it more. I always felt the term energy vampire was sort of a very generic term. And like I said, no matter if you could call somebody that, and it's always kind of that blame game, but we're allowing that. We're allowing that to happen repeatedly. We're allowing people to drain us repeatedly. So whose fault is that? That's not their fault. That's our fault because we've allowed that. We've created a reality where that is the baseline of the reality. We've set the reality up where someone can come and receive that from us, right? And use us to fill holes. And after a while, it starts to really become so uncomfortable because people are more tuned in that they just kind of start to shut that down. Now we don't want those relationships anymore. Now, there's a set of the collectives that still are okay with it, and they're still in a very human consciousness. They're still active. They're still making choices from that human consciousness, and they're not really able to flip it yet, and that's fine. That's where they are. But if you're watching this, you're either being siphoned off of, or you're curious if you're siphoning yourself. One of the questions I'd always get when anyone would ask what I did, and I would, explain it as best I could, they would always ask me this one question. It's a popular question I ever got. Is my energy bad? They'd look at me and go, what are you picking up? Is my energy not good energy? Because there was such a stigma, around good energy, bad energy, good vibes, and all this kind of human crap we put on higher consciousness that it can be good or bad. It's neutral in a sense. It's conscious or it's not. And so people were becoming a little more aware, but it also activated their consciousness to become more aware of what does that even mean? What is my energy field like? How do I cultivate myself? How do I cultivate my energy to make sure I am taken care of? So people were a little more aware of, what is going on. And it can be I know I flip things a lot, but there can also be a flip where your energy, your frequency is higher than everyone else, and they don't want to be around you because they don't want their stuff to come up. And when they're with you, their stuff might not come up immediately. It might take a couple days to work through, but being exposed to the frequency, your frequency activates their frequency in their body. There's a match there, or they wouldn't have been there in the first place. And now their stuff's going to come up. So eventually, they just want to avoid you. So people who in the past wanted to be around you, all of a sudden don't want to be around you because they understand there's repercussions to that. There is a, it's kind of like that wrecking ball. It's gonna maybe push them into their awakening or push them farther into their ascension. So when we look at siphoning energy, draining other people, be aware of why you're showing up. Be aware. Why am I here? I am here to hold the field. I am not here to drain anybody else's field. And if I start to feel like it's shifting or I'm needing to because I'm so depleted, I have to now remove myself from this space, because consciousness means we are conscious of ourselves. We have to be conscious enough to know, okay, I can't do that right now. I am too depleted. I cannot go into a space where there's 15, 20 people because I'm too depleted. Or if I'm clearing something, I'm too damn mad. It's like, I've got to clear this. I don't want to expose that frequency either, because people will siphon that too, in a sense. Well, it's really, you can say it's a siphoning. In that case, it's probably more of a frequency match where you're going to activate it in them. You're going to just the whole field's going to come to a big brawl, a big distorted brawl. So look at when you're putting yourself in these situations. Am I putting myself in this situation when I'm drained? Because I'm now going here to receive something? Because I'm drained. I want to pick up the light here. You know what I mean? I want to go here and generate. I want to feel like I'm absorbing someone else's light because I don't have time to regenerate myself. There's so many twists and turns to this. And I know all my videos, I kind of go, they're all stream of consciousness and they go kind of all over the place, but they always kind of tend to come back somewhere in the middle or the end. Be aware when you show up. How do you feel when you show up there? And if you're not showing up completely filled up, why are you showing up at all? That's a question you want to ask yourself. Why are you putting yourself there? You're putting yourself there because you want something, right? Or you're putting yourself there because, I said I was going to do it. Obligation. Why are we really there? We can play the victim in it, and that's a lot of the energy vampire stuff, which is very victim mentality, right? Like, oh, they're energy vampires, but I gotta go. Oh, let me put myself in this big energetic bubble. That was the big thing a while. I don't know, maybe it was a decade ago. I don't remember. Time means not much to me. These are just all kind of words we would use to say, okay, I'm going to allow this to take place. I'm going to allow this to take place. But like I said, if your physical body, if you have to start looking at your energy body as your physical body, you cannot really separate the two. If you have no physical, you won't have a physical body that's going to be able to operate in any kind of fashion. You can't, if you don't get that frequency up, you can't really exist for that long. Not in any type of, I hate to use health or non-health, but any kind of capacity to that sense, because you're not generating enough light to sustain yourself. So you're always going to be like a succubus. You're always going to be trying to get someone else to generate it for you. So, and if you're doing that now, you have to be conscious of it, and then you have to shift it. You see a lot of people who would say, oh, that person's doing this, that person's doing this, but we're not doing anything to remove ourselves from the situation because maybe we like being part of that. Because, that gave me a purpose. That's another thing. It's the people who are really into that victim energy because it gave me a story. It gave me a purpose. It made me feel wanted, even though it was not a relationship that was beneficial to both parties. So, all right, that was a lot. That was a lot today. So we're going to leave it there. Okay, keep practicing the art of intuition.